There's a remarkable new development in the January 6th investigation. By the way, I'm not going to talk about the January 6th committee. They're genuinely investigating nothing. They're harassing a lot of people, obtaining a lot of bank records. I'm talking about new facts about January 6th. Now, if you look at the cases that are winding their way through the court system, it was initially claimed in the filings of a number of January 6 defendants. Let's note again that these defendants are charged with, quote, entering and remaining in a restricted building or grounds and disorderly conduct in a restricted building or grounds. And the key word here is restricted. Now, what makes a building restricted? Many people think, well, it's because the Capitol was officially closed. But that is not the point here. The reason is, if a building is closed, there needs to be some kind of sign that says building closed, off limits. And in fact, there was none of that. So the charging documents don't talk about the building being closed. They're trying to make their case against the January 6 defendants by saying two things. One, that Kamala Harris was in the building. So in other words, you've got a security risk posed by the presence of the designated vice presidential candidate about to become the vice president. She's in the building. And so that creates a level of threat that makes what these guys are doing unlawful. The building is unrestricted, not because of who's in it. And second, that Mike Pence is in the building. So you got the current vice president, the outgoing but current vice president. He's also in the building. He's also obviously under heavy Secret Service protection. And so the premise that you got these two, quote, high security individuals in the building was all over the charging documents. Now, over the past several weeks, the DOJ began to amend its charges to concede that Kamala Harris was not, in fact, in the building. In reality, where was Kamala Harris? She was over at the DNC. In fact, she was at the location where the so-called two pipe bombs were allegedly planted. By the way, that case is supposedly unsolved. They have no idea who planted the pipe bombs, even though that building, too, is apparently under heavy security cameras, and they should have been able to solve that case, but evidently they haven't. In any case, Kamala Harris is not in the building, and so the DOJ is like, yeah, we kind of got that wrong. We kind of goofed. And so they very slyly begin to change their documents and remove that claim. But the new development is that it now appears that, quite likely, because we're not entirely sure, that Mike Pence was not in the building either. Now, this is very telling because it sort of blows out of the water the whole concept that this was even a, quote, restricted building. For it to be a restricted building, you would need to have someone like a Mike Pence or Kamala Harris in it. Now, let's look at the situation involving Mike Pence. Initially, the charging document said Mike Pence is in the building. Then slowly, and this is again Julie Kelly noticing this and reporting it in a recent article, she says she begins to notice that the documents no longer say that. They began to imply that Mike Pence was, quote, not in the building, but in the tunnel. He was in the tunnel leading to the building. But evidently, there was some security footage that's beginning to come out now as particular cases go before judges, that Mike Pence was not in the security tunnel either. And so what's happening is that the DOJ is desperately trying to suppress the security footage from being released because apparently it will reveal that Mike Pence was in fact not in the building or in the tunnel. Now, this is how devious these guys are when they do it. And I want to point out two things. One, the DOJ is arguing that for a building to be restricted, it, quote, does not require the Secret Service protectee to be present on the grounds or in the building as long as they can suggest he was, quote, on his way to the building. So he's not in the building, he's not in the tunnel, but he's making his way to the building. And so they are displacing the standard that you have to show to establish the risk. And here's the second thing they're doing. They're asking the court to limit the cross-examination of Secret Service witnesses. They're saying defense attorneys should not be able to ask where exactly Mike Pence was. Why? because where Mike Pence was is a matter of national security. It's a state secret. It's not, I mean, you can understand it's a state secret where someone's whereabouts are now. But who cares what someone's whereabouts were on January 6th? What can somebody do with that information? Terrorists will be really interested to know. So what? So what clearly the national security pretext is being invoked here to prevent the defense counsel from exposing a second lie. Not only was Kamala Harris not in the building, neither was Mike Pence. This was not, in fact, as a practical matter, a restricted building, and all these charges against all these defendants are sitting on a bogus premise. What I find particularly unnerving, and Julie's made the same point, is these judges appear not scandalized by the routine lying by the DOJ. I don't know if they think that this is normal, these are just chronic liars and we should just take it in stride, or if the judges are sort of view themselves as accessories or collaborators with the DOJ and they take a more forgiving attitude toward DOJ lies. But in any case, what we're seeing here is the manipulation of evidence, the putting forward of false claims, all of which, if exposed and overturned, would go a long way toward the exoneration of these poor defendants.